If you're like me, I bet you're wondering, where is Malik Nabers? After a sizzling first 4 weeks, especially in weeks 2 through 4, he's practically non existent the past 4 weeks from weeks 7 to 10. Well, I looked through a ton of advanced stats from weeks 1 to 4 and then 7 to 10 from both Malik Nabers and Daniel Jones, as well as film from various games in the first 4 weeks and week 9 to figure out what exactly is happening. Watch till the end of the video and you'll have a pretty good idea as to why Malik Nabers isn't performing at the level he was pre-concussion. Alright, so I broke it down in weeks 1 to 4 and then 7 to 10. In weeks 1 to 4, there were 61 total wide receivers that had at least 20 total targets in the first 4 weeks. Malik Nabers ran 190 routes in the first 4 weeks, which was 94.1% of the total team routes. When we take a look at his utilization, he played 21.3% of his snaps from the slot, 77.7% from out wide. Look at his yards per out run, 2.29, which was good for 15th. His PFF receiving grade of 81.4 was good for 8th. His yards after catch per reception of 4 was tied for 27th, so not great, but not terrible either. His 6 missed tackles forced was tied for 7th. His 7 contested catches were good for 4th. He was first in targets with 61, first in receptions with 41, 4th in total yards with 436, and tied for 5th with 3 touchdowns. That is amazing work from a rookie wide receiver in his first 4 games. So then I wanted to see, how did he perform against man and zone coverage specifically? And so in weeks 1 to 4, I took a look at wide receivers with at least 7+ targets versus man coverage specifically in the first 4 weeks. That was 29 total wide receivers. And so versus man, Malik Nabers cooked. 4.53 yards per out run was good for 3rd. His PFF receiving grade of 89.0 was also good for 3rd. His yards after catch per reception of 10 was 4th. He didn't force any missed tackles or have any contested catches, but his 8 targets were tied for 7th. His 5 receptions were tied for 7th. His 86 yards were 5th. And his 1 touchdown was tied for 2nd. Then we take a look at how he performed in zone. Well, his 1.96 yards per out run weren't quite as good. They were 13th, though, not terrible. His PFF receiving grade of 69.2 was 11th, not terrible either. His yards after catch per reception of 3.7 was tied for 13th, not terrible, but not elite. His 3 missed tackles forced, though, was tied for 4th. His 5 contested catches was good for 1st. His 22 targets was good for 1st. His 15 receptions were 2nd. His 149 yards were good for 6th. And his 2 touchdowns was tied for 1st. So, your targets, receptions, yards, and touchdowns were definitely better against zone. But his per route efficiency in terms of his yards per out run and his yards after catch per reception were definitely better against man. But overall, for a rookie in his first 4 games, those are elite numbers. All right, so weeks 1 to 4 were awesome, but let's take a look at 7 through 10. Well, there were 25 total wide receivers that had at least 20 total targets in this time frame. Nabers ran 109 routes, which is 89.3% of the team routes. He played 28.7% of his routes from the slot and 71.3 out wide, so a little bit more in the slot than out wide compared to weeks 1 to 4, so that is something to note. His 1.7 yards per out run was good for 14th. Definitely not terrible, but down from before. His PFF receiving grade of 74.4 was good for 9th. Definitely down from what it was before. His 2.0 yards after contact per reception was good for 16th. He didn't force any missed tackles. His 5 contested catches were tied for 2nd. His 30 targets were 1st. His 20 receptions were 6th. His 171 receiving yards, however, were only good for 13th, and he didn't have a touchdown. When we take a look at how he did versus man, this is so much worse than it was before. And so in terms of the sample here, I took a look at wide receivers in week 7 to 10 that had at least 7+ targets versus man coverage so that this meant anything. And so that was 35 total wide receivers. In terms of his yards per out run versus man, it's way down from what it was before. His 1.19 ranked 27th among the sample size. His PFF receiving grade of 68.8 was 17th. His yards after catch per reception of 3 was tied for 18th. He didn't force a missed tackle. His 2 contested catches were good for 6th. His 12 targets were 4th. His 7 targets were 5th. His 43 total yards were 22nd. And he didn't score a touchdown. Basically, everything was exponentially worse. When you take a look at zone, his 1.72 yards per out run were good for 13th. His 72.8 PFF receiving grade was good for 9th. His 0.7 yards after catch per reception was 33rd. Yikes. No forced missed tackles. His 5 contested catches were 1st. His 19 targets were 4th. His 14 receptions were 4th as well. His 139 receiving yards were 8th. And no touchdowns. And so basically across the board, man and zone, everything was infinitely worse from week 7 to 10 than they were in weeks 1 to 4. All right, so then I also wanted to take a look at Daniel Jones, to be fair. In weeks 1 to 4, among quarterbacks with at least 91 dropbacks, that was 29. Daniel Jones' 63.5 PFF passing grade was good for 20th, pretty bad. His completion percentage of 63.2 was 23rd. His 6.2 yards per attempt was 24th. His 4 passing touchdowns were tied for 16th. His 3 interceptions were tied for 10th. His 1.3 big-time throw percentage was 28th. His 2.4 turnover-worthy play percentage was 9th best with 2.4. His dropped pass percentage was 10.8, which was 3rd worst. That means his wide receivers dropped the ball a lot. He had 62 pressures, which was the 4th highest in the NFL. His pressure to sack ratio of 14.5 was 7th best. And his time to throw of 2.81 seconds was 14th. And so when we take a look at weeks 7 to 10, once again, among quarterbacks with 91 dropbacks, there were 28 this time. Daniel Jones had a 72.7 PFF passing grade, which was 15th, better than before. Interesting. His 65.6 completion percentage was 13th, higher than before. His 6.0 yards per attempt was tied for 25th, slightly lower than weeks 1 to 4. His 2 passing touchdowns were 25th, half of what it was in the first 4 weeks. His 3 interceptions were tied for 8th, that matched the first 4 weeks. His big-time throw percentage of 2.3 was 24th, but much better than the first 4 weeks. His turnover-worthy play percentage of 1.9% was the 20th highest, but lower than before. His 9.1% dropped pass percentage was 6th highest, but still less than the 10.8. His 59 pressures were the 3rd highest, but basically right on par with before, so 3 isn't a big difference in my opinion. His pressure to sack ratio, though, 25.4% was 4th highest. And his time to throw, actually, which is interesting, was only 2.66, which was 21st. And that's actually quicker than it was before, which makes the pressure to sack ratio interesting. But then I wanted to take a look at a couple of other advanced stats to try to paint a picture. When we take a look at his danger plays, his 16 ranks 6th in the entire NFL. That's bad. His 12 interceptable passes rank 5th. That's pretty bad. But his clean pocket accuracy rating of 7.7 was 1st in the entire NFL. Interesting. His deep ball catchable pass rate of 43.8% is 19th, a little bit below the median. His pressured catchable pass rate, though, of 52.4 is 19th, so the same. His yards per attempt of 6.1 is only 30th, so that's pretty bad. His 5.5 adjusted yards per attempt is 27th, terrible. His air yards per attempt is 7.4 is 23rd, pretty bad. Now, the unrealized air yards, that is Malik Nabers specific. 529 unrealized air yards for Nabers, 2nd in the entire NFL. Yeah. Taking a look at his true completion percentage of 71.6%, that takes care of, that eliminates throwaways and the like. His 71.6% was 15th, so middle of the pack. His deep ball completion percentage of 28.1% is 30th. Yikes. His pressured completion percentage of 56.3 is 19th, so below the median. His play action completion percentage of 49.5 is 29th, so that's atrocious. His red zone completion percentage of 53.1 is 19th, so below average. And then his clean pocket completion percentage of 66.1 is 27th in the NFL. And so what you have here is it appears as though when he's given a clean pocket, his 7.7 is ranked first, so that's good. But there's a lot of danger plays, interceptable passes. When he is pressured, the numbers say that he's atrocious, or at least below average in all of them. And Malik Nabers has 529 unrealized air yards, which is second in the entire NFL. And so what can we conclude here? Well, it appears as though Daniel Jones is very dangerous to start at quarterback, given his danger plays and interceptable passes. But he's also not being protected, given that he has 59 pressures in the last 4 weeks, which is third highest in the entire NFL. But when he is pressured, he is, at best in some of these stats, a below average quarterback, but in a lot of them, among the worst in the NFL. And those 529 unrealized air yards to Malik Nabers, which is second in the entire NFL, paint a picture that Malik Nabers should be having a much better season. And so I broke it down even further. I wanted to take a look at, by depth, the success of Malik Nabers in the first 4 weeks and in the last 4. In the first 4 weeks, Malik Nabers had at least 5 targets in each one of these areas of the field. But in the last 4, he only had 2. And so in the first 4-week sample size, I have wide receivers with at least 5 targets in all depths. And then in week 7 to 10, I have at least 2+ targets in each one. So when we take a look at the first 4 weeks, Malik Nabers had 5 behind the line of scrimmage targets, which is tied for 10th. The last 4 weeks, he's only had 2, which is 26th. So that is something to note. In the first 4 weeks, he had 3 receptions, which was 15th. He only has 2, which is tied for 24th. In the first 4 weeks, he had 10 behind the line of scrimmage yards, which is 13th. He had none on his 2 receptions in the last 4 weeks. And his behind the line of scrimmage PFF grade of 49.6 was 15th in the first 4 weeks. Well, it was 60.2, which is 67th in the past 4. But that is better than the first 4, so you got to give him that. Then when you take a look at the short area of the field, 1 through 9 yards, he had 24 targets in the first 4 weeks, which was second. Well, in the past 4, he had 24, which was second as well. So literally the same. In the first 4 weeks, he had 22 receptions in this area of the field, which is tied for first. Since then, in the last 4 weeks, he's had 17, which was first. So heavily utilized in the short area of the field. When we take a look at his yards, in the first 4 weeks, he had 196, which was first. The last 4, he had 118, which was third, so pretty successful in both. When you take a look at his PFF receiving grade in the short area of the field in the first 4 weeks, he had 92.3, which was sixth. Post that, he had 92.5, which was third. So he's actually improved. That is good to see. When you take a look at the middle area of the field, 10 to 19 yards, his 11 targets in the first 4 weeks were tied for 7th. He's had 10 in the last 4, which is tied for 11th, so basically the same. In the first 4 weeks, he had 7, which is tied for 6th in terms of receptions. He's had 7 as well in the past 4 weeks, which is tied for 9th. When you take a look at his receiving yards in that area of the field through the first 4 weeks, his 88 ranked 12th. In the last 4 weeks, his 103 are tied for 12th as well, so an increase there. And his PFF receiving grade the first 4 weeks of 93.3 was 7th. It was 94 in the past 4, which is tied for 12th, so an increase there. That is good to see. But this is what I think the difference is. In the first 4 weeks, he had 11 deep targets, which was first. He's only had 7 in the past 4, which is tied for 5th, so a decrease there. He had 3 receptions, which was tied for 5th in the first 4 weeks in the deep area of the field. He's had none in the last 4 weeks. His 92 receiving yards deep downfield in the first 4 weeks were 11th. He's had none in the last 4 weeks. Then when we take a look at his deep PFF receiving grade, In the first 4 weeks, it was 93.3, which was 11th. Since then, it's been 43.5, which is 83rd. I want to see on film, though, especially this past week, what his targets are looking like. But I think it's quite clear that the deep area of the field is the biggest difference here in the first 4 weeks versus the last 4. All right, taking a look at Nabers' first successful play from week 2. He starts out in the slot. They're going to put him out wide after putting him in motion. I'm going to let that play out, and then I'll further explain the play. All right, so at this point, what the Giants are going to do is have Nabers run a drag. They're going to have Theo Johnson purposefully get right in between and jam up both of these defenders before running a crosser. They're going to have Wan'Dale Robinson on a drive route, and they're going to have Slayton on a 9. What this is going to do is specifically Theo Johnson is going to get right in the way of these two defenders, cause them to jam up, which is going to get right in the way of the cornerback. This is purposeful, and what it does is it creates a free pick for Nabers and allows them to exploit the yards after catch ability. And by the way, the Commanders are going to be in cover 2 man, so you're going to have deep half defender, and man coverage throughout. And so this cornerback is going to be on Nabers, and he's going to get jammed up. All right, so at this point right here, you see Theo Johnson purposefully getting right in the way of both of those linebackers, which then gets right in the way of the cornerback trying to guard Nabers. There you go. Creative way to manufacture yards after catch for Nabers. All right, so on Malik Nabers' second successful play, he's going to start out in the slot. He's going to go in motion again for a second time. What we're going to get here is a levels concept. What you're going to have is Theo Johnson slow playing his release. He's going to once again set a pick for Malik Nabers, and he's going to be running a dig route. And you're going to have a drag route by Malik Nabers. This is going to be successful because the Commanders are going to be in cover 2 man, so you're going to have man coverage throughout, as well as 2 deep safeties in the middle of the field. What's going to happen is, since Theo Johnson slow plays his release, once Malik Nabers cuts underneath for the drag, the cornerback is going to get picked, and it's going to create instant separation. All right, so you're noticing that he's going to slow play this release, which is getting right in the way of the corner. Instant separation. Let's take a look from the top. And so we've noticed on 2 successful plays, he's started out in the slot both times, gone in motion, and had a pick set for him, which against man coverage creates instant separation that he's been able to exploit for massive yards after catch. And taking a look at Malik Nabers' third successful play, he's going to start out on the top. He is going to slow play his release, then stutter step before running a 9 route. The Browns are going to be in cover 1 man, so you're going to have deep middle of the field safety here, and then you're going to have man coverage throughout. This play is going to be Daniel Jones trusting Malik Nabers to come down with the ball. And he is going to be rewarded for his trust. And so he really doesn't even have any separation here. He is just going to go right over the top and muscle the ball out of the cornerback's hands. Look at that. We'll take a look in real time. So he starts out closer and then heads out as Wan'Dale goes in motion to the slot. They come up to press, gets off of it, and then mosses the cornerback. And so we've seen that they've created they've set 2 picks for him on drag routes, and he's gotten a ton of yards after catch so far. And on this one, they just trusted him to go deep, and he absolutely mossed the cornerback. Another thing that we've been missing is touchdowns. We're going to take a look at, in my opinion, the best touchdown of the 3 in which he scored in his career. He is going to start out in the slot, and you guessed it, as has happened in 3 of the 4 plays that we've shown so far, he's going to go in motion, and he's going to go out wide to the left. And so I'll let that play out before further explaining. And you'll notice that the Browns are going to be in cover 3 match here. Before, though, what Nabers is going to do is he's going to run an out route. He's going to take the inside release, though, before cutting directly to the back corner. You're going to have match coverage in cover 3 by the Browns, and so it's really man from this cornerback against Nabers, and you're going to have this safety in the deep middle of the field. And so, for all intents and purposes, it's cover 1, and Malik Nabers is going to lose this guy easily. And so he takes the inside release, then cuts on a dime. Look at that separation. Then skies for it, twists, gets both feet down. What a catch. So we'll take a look from the beginning. Once again, they start him out in the slot, put him in motion, and let him do what he does. Beautiful. And that right there is a beautiful display of body control, awareness in terms of where you are in the field, and just dexterity as well. Absolutely marvelous. All right, so on the 4th play we're going to look at, Malik Nabers is going to be in the slot. They're going to run a 1-yard hitch combined with a slot fade for Nabers. If you watched any Nabers college highlights, you would see that he is one of the best slot fade route runners that at least I've ever seen. He gets a ton of separation. It's just an overthrow by Daniel Jones. The Browns are going to be in cover 3 match, and so you would theoretically have a deep third, and this cornerback's going to come down here, and he's going to be a deep third. But since it's match, they're going to act in man coverage. And just watch as he absolutely roasts the slot cornerback here, but it's just a misfire by Daniel Jones. Look at that separation. But he's overthrown. Let's take a look at the pocket. All right, so Daniel Jones, I mean, he doesn't even really have any pressure. He gets to step up into the throw, and he just misses him. And that's Malik Nabers. This guy isn't some slug out there. He has some of the best burst I've ever seen in a football player. And so to just blatantly miss him is just disconcerting. Oh, Daniel Jones. All right, so we've seen a couple of drag routes set up by picks. We've seen slot fades, a stutter go. We've seen an out route. Here, what we're going to have is a sluggo. And so what he's going to do is cut hard inside as if he's running a slant before running deep downfield on a go. The Cowboys are, for all intents and purposes, they're technically in cover 3 match, but for the sake of this cornerback is going to act in man coverage against Nabers. And you're going to have a deep center field safety here. If you're a Cowboys fan, thank goodness for this deep center field safety, because Malik Nabers gets some of the most separation I have just about ever seen on a route right here. It is nasty. Look at this. Breaks his ankles. And if that center field safety wasn't there, crazy separation. Malik Nabers is absolutely dynamic. If you like what you're seeing and hearing, feel free to like and subscribe. It's a free and easy way to support the channel. I love doing these detailed breakdowns where we take a look at advanced stats, situationally, try to compare what we've seen in previous instances to what we're currently seeing, what we can deduce from this. So if you want to see, and breaking down film as well. So if you want to see more content like this, just like and subscribe. Thanks. All right, so we took a look at a couple of successful plays or plays in which Malik Nabers was able to get tons of separation from the first couple of weeks. We're going to break down what we saw from him in week 9. On this first one, he's going to start out at the bottom of your screen. This is a beautiful route. He gets a ton of separation. And it's a really complex route too. So he's going to fake a slant, then fake a go, then turn it into a curl. He is going to get a wicked amount of separation. The Panthers are going to be in cover 3, so you're going to have deep third defender, and deep third defender. This is going to be the primary coverage defender of Nabers. He is going to get lost. But just look at the pass from Jones. It's depressing. So he fakes a slant, gets him to bite, then gets him to retreat because he fears the deep ball, then cuts on a dime. Look at that separation. But the ball goes 10 yards out of bounds. And so I know what you might be thinking. All right, well, let's take a look at the pocket. Well, let's look at the pocket. All right, so Jones is able to step back. They get a chip for the left tackle. There is really no pressure. He steps up into the throw. And it ends up 10 yards out of bounds. It is just terrible accuracy. All right, taking a look at target 2. What you'll notice here, through 2 targets at least, is that Malik Nabers has just started outside. There's no motion. He's not in the slot. And even though he did get a ton of separation on that first route, he's not going to here. He is going to be running a dig. The Panthers are going to be in cover 3 match, and so this is theoretically going to be a deep third defender, but he's going to act in man coverage against Nabers. And then you're going to have this is a deep third safety. It is J.C. Horn, and so he's going to have very good coverage. He is a really good cornerback, but this is just a stale route, in my opinion. Really, there's not much Nabers can do. He runs his route perfectly. It's just really good coverage by J.C. Horn. But you'll notice there's no pick for him. There's no motion. He's not in the slot. All of the things that they were doing towards the beginning of the season, and granted, this is just 2 targets so far, they're not doing now. They're just having him be an isolated wide receiver outside and just hoping that he wins, which he's obviously adept at getting open. And you think that they would do more to get him open, but they're just isolating him outside so far and just hoping that he wins. All right, so on our third target of the day, for once, Malik Nabers isn't just isolated out wide. This time, they're going to have him run a short little curl. The Panthers are going to be in cover 3, and so you'll have deep third defender. This defender is going to be a robber, and so he's going to be in a hook zone here. And this linebacker is going to back out and also be in a hook zone. And so he's going to have space underneath, but he's tackled immediately, and it's really just, it's a fine chain mover, I guess. He fights, he doesn't quite get it, but good fight from Nabers. It's good to get the ball in his hands, but just nothing special. All right, so finally we have some motion. Malik Nabers is going to start out in the slot, go out wide. He's going to run a little bit of a delayed speed out. You're going to get a PA fake by Jones, and he's going to roll right and hit him in the flat. The Panthers are going to be in cover 3, so you're going to have deep third defender, and then Clowney's going to head out to the flat as well. Really nothing special. It's pretty stagnant, and it's really just up to Malik Nabers to get yards after the catch here, which he does. So you get the PA fake, then he's going to roll out to the right. Nabers is really the only guy open, so he splits the defenders, shakes off that tackle, fights forward. Very, very, very tough yards after contact for Nabers. All right, so once again, we have nothing from the slot and no motion. He's just left outside by himself. He's against J.C. Horn once again. He's going to be running a comeback. The Panthers are going to be in cover 2, so you're going to have 2 deep half safeties. J.C. Horn is going to act in man coverage, though, so it's match. He's going to get a good press on Nabers, who's going to get around it, though. But J.C. does grab a hold of him, so it should have been defensive holding in my mind, but he does get open enough to where if the pass was catchable, he was probably going to end up coming down with it. Daniel Jones does get some pressure, but it's picked up rather nicely, and yet he fades away, which causes the ball to be short. What is Nabers supposed to do? You'll see what I mean. And so you notice immediately J.C. Horn gets a really good jam on Nabers, but Nabers fights right through it, begins to go upfield. He does get held there, though, and so it's tough for him to get space. But look, separation, but it's thrown right in the dirt. So let's go back and see about Daniel Jones. All right, so we see he's in the pocket. You're going to see that this end is going to get some pressure, but you'll notice that if he could just step back, which he does, the lineman does block him, and so he fades away and throws it right in the dirt. It's pretty hard for him to catch the ball if it's just thrown in the dirt. And on this target, Daniel Jones is going to try to give Malik Nabers some forever sleep by proxy. Malik Nabers is going to be running a deep dig. The Panthers are going to be in cover 3, so you're going to have deep third defender. And this is going to be the deep third defender here, so it's going to be a cloud because they put Wandale in motion. If Daniel Jones could throw this with just a little bit of anticipation, maybe a little bit, Malik Nabers could have. He did end up living, thankfully, but he tried to put him in some good forever sleep. So you'll notice he gets off the line, free release, and at this point, he's open. He just throws the ball. He is already open. Malik Nabers does leave the ground perhaps unnecessarily, but he was going to get destroyed regardless. And so it's a hospital pass. He hits his head on the ground. But let's look. So Wandale goes in motion to the slot. Right now, Daniel Jones is at the back of his drop. He could throw this right now with anticipation, especially right at this moment. He waits just half a second too late, and because of that, Malik Nabers gets absolutely destroyed. Did Malik Nabers have to leave the ground? Probably not, but regardless, he was going to get crushed. And so I am going to put some of that on Nabers, but at the same time, man, if you could just throw with the slightest bit of anticipation instead of needing to see him wide open, you're going to get your guys forever sleeped. I bet I know what you're wondering. Are they ever going to target Malik Nabers deep down the field? Well, don't you worry. They waited until 1 minute and 59 seconds left to, I don't know, try it out. Malik Nabers is at the bottom of your screen. Once again, no motion, just by himself. He's going to stutter before running a go. The Panthers are going to be in cover 3, so you're going to have J.C. Horn in a deep third against him. You're going to have a robber safety here, deep third and deep third. Ideally, Malik Nabers is going to try to press inside as much as he can to leave space on the sideline for Daniel Jones. He isn't going to do the best job of that. J.C. Horn's a very good cornerback. He realizes what's happening, and so he presses him to the outside. But this ball by Daniel Jones, look, if you have a cornerback with inside leverage and you have a deep third safety in the middle of the field, you know, it might be a good idea to put the ball, I don't know, on the outside. But no. We have Daniel Jones. And so when this is about to be thrown, he does have somebody coming towards him, but it's not as if he had to fade away particularly while throwing it. He isn't able to step into it, but the ball is on the inside where there's 2 defenders there. He almost came down with it too. That's the thing. But let's take a look. First, we're going to take a look from Nabers' point of view. So he stutters right here. Now, he does get jammed and thrown to the outside by J.C. Horn. That's very good coverage. And so there really isn't a ton of space for this ball. But it's thrown to the inside where the safety help is and where J.C. Horn had leverage. You want him to be able to go into essentially double coverage to try to finesse this catch. Now, Daniel Jones. Let's take a look at what he's doing. All right, so he's looking at Nabers, trying to assess it. He doesn't get to step into this throw, but it's the positioning. It's not the distance. He throws it to the inside. I don't know. Like I said, Nabers somehow almost came down with it, but Daniel Jones just did nothing to help him out, basically for the entirety of the game. And this one is perhaps the most frustrating. We have Malik Nabers right here. They're going to put this guy in motion, and they're going to set up a flea flicker. They're going to have Wandale cut across the field, and they're going to do the same with Malik Nabers. Both of them are wide open. I cannot stress how open they're going to be. You'll see it. The Panthers are going to be in cover 3, so you're going to have deep third defender, deep third defender. This guy is going to see that the guy at the end is going to end up blocking, so he's going to head downfield. This cornerback is going to just allow Wandale Robinson to just run free down the field. J.C. Horn isn't going to be anywhere close to Malik Nabers here. And Daniel Jones, who is getting pressured, just doesn't throw the ball. I mean, your guys can't catch it if you don't even throw. Oh my goodness. All right, so he gets the ball back. And so at this moment in time, honestly, Wandale should be the guy you're throwing to. But, I mean, Nabers is going to be wide open too. And so he loads up and then just nothing. Just gets sacked. You have 2 guys wide open. It's a flea flicker. How do you not get the ball out? I don't even understand. We'll take a look from the top, though. My goodness. Wide open, and you just get sacked on a flea flicker. And that right there epitomizes Daniel Jones as the quarterback for the New York Giants. All right, so what can we conclude here? Well, in the first 4 weeks, Malik Nabers was going off. Then, after the injury, he really hasn't been able to get much going. In my opinion, and this is just an opinion, I think that the quarterback play of Daniel Jones is definitely a factor here. We saw specifically in week 9 that he had to, he faded away and threw a ball into the dirt on that curl. We saw that he waited and showed no anticipation on that dig route, which Malik Nabers didn't have to jump, but he was going to get drilled due to Daniel Jones' lack of anticipation. We saw that on that 9 route, he threw it to the inside shoulder where there were 2 defenders instead of towards Nabers. We saw on that flea flicker that he just didn't even get the ball out somehow when there were 2 open wide receivers. And so I think that is a huge factor here. But we also saw in some of those successful plays at the beginning of the season that they were setting picks for him on drag routes. That is just stopped entirely. We saw that a lot of the time they were starting him out in the slot and then moving him in motion right before the play starts. In a lot of the clips from week 9, he was just stagnant on the outside. And yeah, even when he was getting open, like when he did that fake slant, he did that fake sluggo that turned into that curl. Yeah, had 5 yards of separation. And Daniel Jones just threw it 10 yards out of bounds. And so I think 3 things are at play here in terms of why Malik Nabers has slowed down. I think extra defensive attention is one thing, more bracket coverage, which is to be expected when one receiver in a core is just exponentially more talented than the others. Wan'Dale Robinson is a useful slot receiver. Darius Slayton can be a vertical X, but really neither of those players strike fear in defenses like Malik Nabers does. But then we also have the utilization. In the first couple of weeks, they were setting picks for him on drag routes. They had him run slot fades. Yeah, they were getting him vertically down the field, and he was getting wide open. And they were using a lot of motion. We saw in week 9 that he was just by himself on the outside. There was hardly any motion. He wasn't generally in the slot. And so I think that the coaching is at play here as well. And so I think all 3 of these things are working together to slow down Malik Nabers. And it is worrying. But as far as his talent's concerned, this dude is an elite wide receiver. It's my personal opinion that he's already a top 10 wide receiver in terms of real life talent. But is he Justin Jefferson in the sense of completely situation and QB proof? I don't think so. But to cut him some slack, he is in. It would be hard to imagine a worse situation. No creative play calling, at least anymore. Terrible quarterback play, and a ton of defensive attention. That is the reason why Malik Nabers is starting to slow down. Will he recover? It remains to be seen, but he's certainly talented enough. If you like what you've seen and heard in this video, feel free to like and subscribe. I love doing these breakdowns where we take a look at players' utilization, take a look at advanced stats, compare them in different periods of time, then break down what we see from them on film. So if you want to see more content like this, just like and subscribe. Thanks.